Some of you are probably watching this video like, oh, he's just ragging on Trump, saying this to rag on Trump. No, not exactly. I did a video not too long ago on this specific subject matter, and a lot of people didn't want to believe the reports, even though it was reported by virtually everybody. And now we got more of some confirmation on this, and that's really in regards to the ICE, or rather the immigration arrests on farms, hotels, and restaurants being paused right now. Brooke Rollins is the Secretary of Agriculture. And she starts off, saying that ignore the noise from fake news media and grifters trying to divide us. Interesting term to really describe the people that are, calling this for what it actually is. But she goes on to say that severe disruptions to our food supply would harm Americans. It took us decades to get into this mess, and we are prioritizing deportations in a way that will get us out. In other words, let's call this what it is, if albeit temporarily amnesty, okay, for those specific industries. And I want to give big kudos and credit to a lot of Trump's base because they are grilling him and her on this issue. Even in the comments here, you'll see a lot of folks going in on this and disagreeing. So kudos to you guys that are doing that. That said, I do want to give you guys some more perspective on this, because a lot of people don't seem to know that, look, you can't have mass deportations if that's something that you want. Because remember, I was arguing that spending is the issue from which all these other issues kind of stem from. No, you said nope, it's not spending. They need to spend whatever, right? Because the immigration crisis is the crisis, and that has to get addressed. Okay. But when you consider, let's start here. According to the National Agricultural Worker Survey, upward of 50% of U.S. farm workers are undocumented. 30%, according to the Center for Migration Studies and Economic Policy Institute, of workers are in hospitality, so 30%. And in the food services, again, these are all the industries that are supposedly exempt from these arrests, 20 to 25%, okay? Basically, most of the people that are working that are undocumented, those are the industries that they're in. If you wanted to add construction in there, though, I didn't see that part of the exemptions. That's another big one. But still, if you talk about the top four, I just listed 3 of them. OK, so in other words, you can't have mass deportations without impacting those industries. Now, there's 2 main things that I want to bring up here. And the first one is this. This does nothing but benefit big agriculture, okay? And like I've talked about for years, 15 years, talked about how rotten the sort of farm and subsidy issue with regards to the federal government and the favoritism that they play there. But that being said, generally speaking, I'm not saying just exclusively, but generally speaking, this is a policy that benefits the major big companies in those 3 different industries that I discussed, okay? Because the smaller ones, especially with regards to farming, I've been around farmers for a while now, pretty much my entire life, at least in some capacity, lived in Arkansas for a little bit in the country. And those guys aren't really hiring for the most part. Those like smaller family owned and operated like farms, they're not hiring undocumented workers, okay? For the most part. Not saying that there aren't exceptions to that, but most definitely this is a policy that benefits the bigger dogs. And it's reminiscent of the tariff situation, right? And what I think happens here is that a lot of people they have this policy, definitely when a guy like Trump campaigns on something, they have this policy that they really believe in, they really support, right? That's what wins them the election. And then when they put forth some sort of action, nobody reads the fine print there. And this is, again, very similar to what happened with tariffs, in that you did, of course, have these folks that were 145%. What was it? Tariff on like Chinese goods or what have you. But when you read the fine print, you find out that, smartphones, computers, servers, chips, and displays were exempt from that, right? And those were back down to like 5 to 20%, depending on what you're talking about. That benefited Apple and all these major, massive tech companies. The same goes for Section 301, and those exclusions were basically if you have a bunch of lawyers and such, and you can pay all this money, you can actually get product-specific exemptions, like with farm machinery, engine parts, chips, stuff like that. Look, smaller businesses, they don't have the money, resources to be going through all that. These are policies, when you look at the exemptions, benefit the bigger dogs. Okay. So as it stands right now, it does not look like you are about to get mass deportations, which some of you said that the border and all this is the issue. And going back to my last video, I'll end on this. Guys, again, you cannot have mass deportations if that's the issue for some of y'all. This illegal immigration. I don't even care how you feel about the issue. I'm not even arguing with you on the issue. I am just saying that you can't have that without impacting those industries. All that, I thought, there are people holding Trump to it, right? Because you guys like, I'll struggle for a little bit if it means actually resolving this issue. Okay, great. But yeah, that's what's going to happen. And if you are going to exempt those or grant this sort of amnesty, and everybody's talking about this transitionary, it's not transitionary. It's just not going to. And what are you going to get? You're going to get all these people that are like illegal immigrants. And once the news gets out, why wouldn't they go work in those industries if they know that that's going to be their way to not get deported? Okay. So the second thing that I want to bring up, and the final thing, is that, remember, the big, beautiful bill, which I've been a big critic of, most of the money that is an increase goes to defense, has nothing to do with border, but some increases, yes, to CBP as well as ICE. Okay. Let me get this straight. You are asking for more money, and you're saying we must support this. It has to pass. We got to support Trump's agenda. This has to pass. He's saying that it needs to pass. It has to pass. Okay. Well, why on earth would you need more money if you're going to just not only not enforce the rules with the money that you have right now in the industries that it impacts the most? So make that make sense is all I'm saying. Okay. As it stands right now, you're not getting mass deportations. But shout out to those that are being very critical of Trump and his administration for, again, flip-flopping on this issue.